A while back, I was watching an episode of the series Supernatural, and in this episode, a man was sitting on a chair, two guys approaching him. The man on the chair was sitting as though he was sleeping, with his head slightly bowed down. One of the two guys approaching the man on the chair then takes off a hat he was wearing, and as they pulled off the hat, half his brain was exposed with worms oozing out of it. So that scene was quite unexpected and out of the ordinary of what one would see in reality or everyday life. So I grimaced at the prospect of actually, in reality, seeing something like that. Then, the next day, I was walking in the fields on the way to the horses, and I had an itch on my scalp, and as I was looking, or as I was about to scratch it, there pops up the memory of this particular scene. I mean, immediately in that moment I stopped, having a look at what had just happened, because many of us would think something like that to be normal or okay or ordinary, where you scratch, for example, a certain body part and a memory pops up. But there's in fact more going on within and behind it all than one would realize. And this is what I'm going to discuss in this interview. Firstly, I looked at the moment I saw the scene, the reaction I had within myself. And this is something that series and movies and shows often play on within the minds of human beings. It is geared to make us react and respond energetically with emotions and feelings. This primarily done through taking the series or movies or shows as far from reality or the real world as possible, which would produce emotional and feeling reactions or responses because it is not aligned with reality or the real world, in fact, or rather not aligned with the reality or real world that most of us are exposed to in our lives. Therefore, with scenes and storylines losing touch with reality, our minds do not have the tools with which to equate a commonsensical relationship to what one sees in series and movies. And so therefore, we react energetically with emotions and feelings. And eventually, the mind will try to equate a relationship to it through using imagination. I mean, it's interesting how extensively we take what is watched in movies and series into our imagination and let our imaginations run wild. I mean, series and movies, etc., when watched within the starting point of emotional or feeling reactions, are like a feeding ground for one's imagination. I mean, that then feeds into one's personalities, into one's emotional and feeling bodies of personalities, and then from there back into reality, how we then superimpose imaginations onto actual reality and so lose touch with the real world. So it's like a whole interconnected system that is created for one purpose only, keeping you as far away from reality as possible, while stimulating the senses of the mind or consciousness. And so we lose touch with how reality, in fact, operate and function. And here, I would suggest taking a listen to an interview I did regarding watching series and movies and shows, because the solution is obviously not to stay away from it, because you're then not dealing with the existent problem or point within and as your mind. I mean, the program will always remain then within the mind, only deactivated, if you will. So the solution with how to approach or change your relationship to watching things from reaction to common sense critical reasoning can be found in the interview listed in the description box below. So this is also why one would have resistance to watching more realistic or educational shows, such as documentaries, for example. Why in the global consciousness circuit, a more definitive relationship is created to things that are more taken far from reality. I mean, it shows how far taken our own minds or imaginations are from reality, and how we're more conditioned to watching things that make us feel something than watching things that would actually align us to contributing to life and living on Earth for all, such as documentaries, with understanding how the world and humanity in fact function or exist. Because within documentaries, for example, because it is more in line with reality, one will not have as extensive emotional and feeling reactions, and or the mind will even manage to take documentaries into the imagination, where you will allow your imagination to run wild with what you learn or see, instead of looking at it practically or realistically, geared to finding solutions rather than react. We'll continue more in the next interview.